Howdy folks, and welcome back to Cold Waters with Commander Jingles McJingleberry. West Germany is barely clinging on in the face of the Soviet onslaught, and when last we left our intrepid hero, despite successfully sinking half the tonnage of the Red Banner Northern Fleet, we'd failed for the second time in the row to actually sink the guided missile submarines that had been terrorising the North Atlantic convoys en route back to their home bases in Murmansk. But third time may just be the charm, because I have a submarine contact in the Norwegian Sea. We have a sonar contact bearing 196 designated Sierra 1. We have a very strong surface duct, a strong thermal layer at 246 feet. My speed is only 10 knots, so we're going to close the range down to 10,000 yards, and then we're going to put the crew at action stations. Okay, so bearing 196, so he's basically due south. Or he was due south. We're heading more or less directly towards him. To reacquire the contact, we really want to be at 90 degrees to his course, so we're going to swing the boat around, roughly to a course of 90 degrees, slow it down, and bang, there we go. We've reacquired contact Sierra 1, and we've picked up another contact Sierra 2. Now that we've slowed down to 5 knots, and we're travelling perpendicular to their course, that gives the towed array sonar a much better chance of picking up a contact. I'm working on the initial assumption that these guys are on the same side of the thermal layer as me, because it is a very strong surface duct. And what that means is sound signals above the thermal layer tend to get trapped in the layer. That's the cheap and cheerful version. It's a little bit more complicated than that. But that's the assumption that I'm working off to begin with, and I'm now attempting to classify contact Sierra 1. That's the contact closest to me. Matching up the data on the waterfall display with the known records of Soviet submarines, and I have actually misclassified that contact. I've gone ahead and called it a Charlie 2. In my haste to nail myself one of these guided missile submarines, I've classified that one as a Charlie 2. Charlie 2 is a guided missile boat. That is not a Charlie 2. That's actually a Victor 3. It's a hunter-killer attack submarine. Whatever he is, he's banging away on active sonar. And at the moment I'm busy trying to classify contact Sierra 2, but I should probably have assigned a little bit more importance to the fact that contact Sierra 1 is transmitting on active sonar, and as a rule submarines don't tend to do that unless they have a very good reason to. A good reason might be something like he's picked up a sonar contact and he's attempting to refine a target solution. But I'm still busy trying to get a classification for Sierra 2, and I've decided that it's an Oscar, but an Oscar is also a guided missile submarine, and it would be unusual for two of them to be out here without an escort. So right now I'm thinking to myself that Sierra 1 is getting awfully close, and it's time I put a torpedo in the water. We're also going to fire one off in the direction of Sierra 2, the contact that I've classified as an Oscar, and I'm thinking there's probably a third boat out here somewhere, because these are both missile boats. They're going to have an escort. Now the second I fired those torpedoes off, that Oscar immediately started to cavitate. Now it's a terrible target solution, so I've estimated his range at 18,000 yards, but the fact that he started cavitating and going to full speed the second those torpedoes were launched, so he definitely heard them being launched, would indicate that he's probably a little bit closer than 18,000 yards. Right now though, my attention is focused very firmly on contact Sierra 1. It is actually a Victor 3, not the Charlie 2 that I think it is. But I have his bearing, his range, his course, his speed. He's going too fast, and he's going in the wrong direction to fire a torpedo at me. So I'm sitting here thinking I'm perfectly safe. And then that happens. Shit. That may have actually been launched by the Oscar. The Oscar carries SSN-15 and SSN-16 submarine-launched anti-submarine missiles, although they do normally have nuclear warheads. Don't worry, this isn't one of those, or I'd be dead already. Now I didn't immediately go to flank speed and torpedo evasion because I was below the thermal layer, and it looked initially as if that weapon was conducting a search pattern above the layer, but it's well below the layer now and it's definitely locked on. I drop a noisemaker, I increase my speed, but that is locked on good and proper, and I am in serious trouble now. All ahead flank, guys. Let's make this thing dance. I'm coming up, so I'm going to start cavitating, but you know, that's the least of my problems at the moment, Sam. Oh damn, that one was really close. The torpedo's turning to starboard, so I pull a hard full speed turn to port. What I need to do now is one way or another get out of the search pattern of that weapon before it comes around and reacquires a contact. Now I can either go deep or I can go shallow. I just have to not be at the same depth as that torpedo. And I'm cavitating heavily, and there's plenty of water underneath my keel, so I'm going to go deep. I've now stopped cavitating. It's coming around. I've got to get well outside of its search zone before it comes around and gets that sonar pointing back at me. My sonar team are reporting all kinds of cavitation noises coming from the two contacts that I've fired my weapons at, as they're having a merry old time trying to avoid getting sunk. But, well, I'm well below the depth of that torpedo now. In fact, I'm a little bit too far below, and bang, there goes the target that I thought was a Charlie 2, but has now just been positively identified as a dead and sinking Victor 3. And the weapon in the water above me is executing a search pattern. It has not reacquired the contact. I appear to be safe. I momentarily exceeded a depth of 1,000 meters, which is, it's not instant death, but I'll stay above 1,000 meters depth if at all possible. And I think we're going to live. Yay! For now, at least. Okay, what's going on? We've sunk the Victor 3. There's still an Oscar out there somewhere, although in all the manoeuvring I lost them in my baffles, and I have yet to reacquire a contact. I don't want to get any closer to that torpedo in the water than I absolutely need to. But at the same time, if I want to reacquire that Oscar, I'm going to have to get the boat turned around and slowed down to get the towed array working and picking him up, and great, I caught a lucky break. Well, it wasn't lucky. Well, I suppose it was a little lucky, but the weapon ran out of fuel and it self-destructed. So I don't have to worry about exposing myself to reacquisition from that torpedo. Now I can slow my ass down, run the towed array out, and get to work reacquiring Contact Sierra 2. And I've just reacquired Contact Sierra 2. He's cavitating. It's a terrible sonar contact, and I can only hold this sonar contact because he is cavitating, which probably means he's furiously trying to avoid the torpedo I fired at him. So while he's busy doing that, let's get ourselves into a better position to maintain and improve the target solution. It's not a particularly good target solution. I've got a bearing. I don't believe the range and speed for a second. There's no way he's cavitating while doing 0 knots. So I'm just going to wait for this contact to firm up a little. I'm also starting to detect some active sonar pulses coming from his direction now. It's way too far away for him to get a contact on me, but it is confirming the bearing that the sonar team have already established on that contact, the Oscar. So the solution is still not great. Well, it's pretty terrible. But at least I have a definite confirmed bearing to the target. Okay, let's slow our asses down, level the bubble, and now that we're perpendicular to the contact, beam onto him. Let's get that towed array working. And the contact's already getting better. Yeah, that's a much, much more accurate speed and probably range. A couple of seconds later, the solution has firmed up enough that I'm now getting an estimated depth. And I'm confident enough that this guy is where the sonar team are predicting his position that I'm going to put another torpedo in the water. His depth is estimated to be just below the thermal layer, and that would kind of make sense, because if he's doing 26 knots at a depth of 250 feet, it's no wonder I can hear him cavitating. And the only reason he'd be doing that kind of speed at that kind of depth was because he's trying to get some distance between himself and the first torpedo that I fired at him. That torpedo's not going to sink him. If it was, it would have sunk him by now. It's probably executing a search pattern a few thousand yards behind him as he's motoring along, trying to get some distance between himself and it. But while he's doing that, at a depth of about 250 feet, I can hear him. And so I fired a second weapon. Now, I'm going to do my level best to retain the command wire to this second weapon, because he is a fair distance away. And anything can happen in the time it takes that weapon to close the distance, go active, and start searching for a target itself. He could change depth dramatically, and once again, just as I did earlier, get out of the search pattern of the weapon. As long as I've got the command wire and a good contact, I can steer it to him manually and I've just lost my contact. The first torpedo was almost certainly run out of fuel and self-destructed, so he slowed down because he no longer had a reason to be doing full speed, and then he immediately started cavitating again. He's heard the second torpedo. Now it still has a fair old way to go, and it's going to take some time to get there, but as long as he's doing maximum bells trying to get away from it, I can maintain this contact and I can steer the torpedo towards him if I have to, as long as I don't lose that command wire. But Jingles, now that you've fired a weapon at him, shouldn't you be going full speed torpedo evasion in case of counterfire? Well, the book says yes, but I'll lose the command wire if I do that. Well, that's no good reason for putting your boat at risk. Well, that's true, but I can hear him because he's cavitating. Now, I don't have a fantastic solution on him after reacquiring him, and the sonar team's reporting his speed as 8 knots. But there's no way he's only doing 8 knots if I can hear him cavitating. So he's going too fast to fire a torpedo at me. I should be relatively safe, although I thought I was relatively safe earlier, and then somebody dropped a rocket launch torpedo on my head. But I'm reasonably confident that we're going to be okay. I mean, it's possible that before he went at flank speed after detecting my second torpedo, he snapped a shot down this torpedo's line of bearing, but I'm sitting here just accelerating time until my weapon reaches its activation range, which is around about now. There it goes. Sonar active. I'm sitting here right in the shadow zone, right under the thermal layer. If I need to, if I feel like there's any kind of risk, I can always just pop above the thermal layer and continue tracking the target with the active sonar from the weapon, because I still have the command wire. Now, we did for a second there get a 95% target solution on this guy, and then it degraded. But I know he's right there in the seeker head of this weapon. We're getting a good strong return from the weapon's sonar, and it's only a matter of time before that firms up and we actually see the contact. Not too sure about his depth. I think I may need to come down a little. So we're steering the weapon using the numerical keypad. There he is, and he's cavitating again. Yeah, we've got him. This is why it's always a good idea, if possible, to retain control of the weapon. Try not to cut the wire if you can possibly avoid it. There's no way he's getting out of this one. Not with manual control over the weapon. He could ditch a noisemaker. If the weapon wasn't manually controlled, that may work. Is that a noisemaker, or is he forming a knuckle? No, that's just his cavitation. But as long as I'm guiding the weapon myself, I can see the noisemaker and ignore it. So he is dead. It's just a matter of time. As long as I don't lose the wire. Because I would look really stupid if I lost the wire at this point. So Jingles, don't lose the wire, Jingles. Jingles, don't suck. Is that a noisemaker? No, that's a knuckle. He's pulling a hard turn. Again, I don't have to worry about the seeker head of the weapon being confused by the knuckle in the water, because I'm steering it myself. I can see the target. I ain't going to go chasing after any knuckles when I've got a dirty, great big fat Oscar sitting right in front of me. 3, 2, 1, bang, you're dead. Das Vidania, bitch. We got you. Right, surely that is my mission target. It's the first guided missile boat I've run across in 3 patrols. I mean, we've sunk cruisers, destroyers, frigates, we've sunk attack boats. This is the first guided missile, confirmed guided missile boat we've come across. Surely, at long last, this guy is my mission target. Fingers crossed. Let's just make sure there isn't a third boat out here somewhere. I don't think there is. I haven't heard any other active sonar. Nope, that's it. Area is secure. 1 Oscar and 1 Victor 3 sunk. Fingers crossed, send the report and see what the Admiral has to say. Boss, I sunk some subs. Hooray! He's very pleased. Well, it's about time. Right, successful mission. I've forgotten what those were like. And, oh yes, incidents involving attacks on transatlantic convoys have rapidly diminished. Well, I don't like to take credit, but I'm going to. It was all me. Right, next up, be very, very quiet. We're hunting submarine tenders, and that is what we're going to be getting up to in the next Cold Waters video. Coming soon to a YouTube channel near you. This one, in fact. Hope you enjoyed this video, folks, and as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.